the Art and Industry of Business and Living podcast, discussing conscious choices around business, money, life and living, and creating a greater future for you and the planet. Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast, The Art and Industry of Business and Living, and you're with Simone, Milasas, your host. And today I am joined by a very good friend of mine, Mr. Christopher Hughes. Welcome.
Well, thank you. That's a lot of berries. You are also a very good friend of mine.
Thanks, Mr. Christopher. And I get to see you this weekend, so I'm very excited about that.
Oh, me too.
So now, one of the things, you used to be my flatmate of all things, many different things you've been involved in and we've been involved in together. But I'm going to bring it right back to voice, right quickly here, right now. I used to live with you in Brisbane, Australia, and I used to love it when you were in the shower singing because you would sing opera. And it was fantastic. And I loved hearing your voice. I still love hearing your voice. So can you give me a little bit of background, Christopher, on, where did you get your training from? How did you find your voice in opera? What made you so interested in it? And what else are you interested in with your voice?
Good question. And wow, if you asked me to go back to the beginning, it actually goes all the way back to like grade 5 or 6, like primary school. And one of my music teachers said to me, do you want to join our choir? And I said, absolutely not. No, thank you. And then eventually relented and realized I really loved singing and loved performing, loved using my voice and being on stage. And I pursued that through high school. And even though I came from like a super poor family, I would do anything to create the money so that I could take vocal training lessons and go to actually learn how to sing. And it was so weird that I was just gravitated to opera. I was from the middle of nowhere, small town in Canada, in Saskatchewan. And this was not like a place of high culture, shall we say. But I was really, drawn to opera, and it's even something that as a younger kid, I would joke about as a kid and like love to stand in the yard and go, la, 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 and just like goof around and thought it was just amazing. But I guess I was always just found it so incredible that people's bodies could have this capacity to create this sound. If you listen to the way people speak walking around and just in their regular like conversations, and then if you listen to how people sing when they're like doing classical singing and opera, it's like there's not a really great relationship, It's like this really inflated, big, crazy sound. And especially when you hear women sing and they're singing super high, it just mesmerized me. I was like, whoa, how incredible that the body can do that. So I pursued it and kept going all the way through getting my first university degree in it and singing, with orchestras and opera companies and doing all sorts of things. But then I actually sort of took a departure from classical singing, but I still really loved playing with voice and using my voice. So I started doing things like the voices for video games and books on tape and cartoon voices and all sorts of crazy stuff. Voices for puppets, like just anything. And all of it still I got such a kick out of being able to play with sound and use my voice in different creative ways.
So we're looking at the topic of the show today, and, at the moment we were calling it when you have the right voice, people cannot resist you. So can you talk a little bit more about that you've just mentioned a whole lot of different realms of using your voice.
Yeah.
But I also happen to know that you have a master's degree in marketing, don't you, Mr. Christopher?
I do. And that's the thing too and voice is a kind of an interesting thing because it's not necessarily even just about speaking or singing. It can be about writing. It can be about all sorts of different things using your particular voice. And yeah, business is an area where you and I both seem to really get excited and have this like real enthusiasm for and this creative capacity with. And with voice and with people, there is a way, it's, you know what, this is really trippy because as we're bringing you, the fact that you asked me about like where I started getting interested in singing, there's a potential to manipulate energies through sound that I knew was available singing. And that led me to, because I mean, sorry, I'm all over the place here, but
No, you're not. You're not. It's great. I can hear it. I can see the little kid standing in his yard going, singing opera. But in truth, it was fun for you and it was a hell of a lot of manipulation.
yeah. But that's the other thing where I have this like sick pleasure that I get from business is in sales and in marketing and working with people, like especially like one on one with a customer. There's a way that you can put things in language and in words and with your voice that makes them so irresistible. It's sort of like the energy available that you can play with when you paint a picture for someone with words. It's like, I remember the very first time I went into an Aussie tuck shop. I was driving down the coast and I ordered a chicken sandwich. And the lady at the tuck shop, she said to me, "Shove that in your gob, love." And I was like, oh my God, what did that woman just say to me? But then imagine going into a fine dining restaurant and having the waiter or waitress, they would just like eloquently describe how the salmon has been gently seared and it's free range from a pristine stream in northern Canada. And it's been artfully prepared with a beautiful creme de blah, blah, blah. You know, you can sort of weave this picture using the description.
That people just want to melt.
Yeah, exactly.
And they want to order it and they desire what you are talking about. And I think that's sort of like a lot of the energy of what you're talking about too, is creating that desire in people.
Yeah, exactly. It is a paintbrush that you can use to illustrate something for people to show them what they could have. And I mean, that's what they say marketing is all about, is conveying to people the value that will be drawn from the exchange of their money for the goods or whatever. You know, you're supposed to show people the value that you're going to get out of something or the benefit for the value. And it's all about languaging things to people.
So how important is that then, Christopher, like the languaging of how you speak, how you write, how you market, how you be that in the world? Like, I mean, if you have the right voice, people can't resist you. So how important is that?
I would say it's massively important. But the thing that people need to get about that is there's no right way to do it. And you need to have the ability or the willingness to step into the world of your audience or the person that you're trying to communicate with and ask, what do they need to hear, or what language or what voice or what word is going to push their buttons and engage them to be interested in what I'm saying.
And then how do you propose that when you ask those questions? I mean, you and I are used to asking questions from the access consciousness point of view and not looking for an answer. But I can hear so many people out there listening to this podcast going, well, how do I find the answer? And it's like, so can you talk a little bit more about the next step when you're asking those questions?
Yeah, the next step is run with it.
What do you mean run with it? Run where?
Well, exactly. You're going to ask something like that, like, oh, what does this person require of me? And it may not be cognitive, or you may get a word pop up, or you may get a feeling or a vibe that goes with that sort of the energetic response to your question. But you may just have to go and run with that first thing that comes to your mind or that first energy and run with that as the direction to take things. Have you ever been in a situation where like you've had to make a presentation or you've had to address a group of people,
yes,
and you're like,
a lot.
yeah, exactly. Right. And you just start, you're excited and you're nervous, or both of the same thing really. And getting on stage and going, I don't have a really concrete or clear idea of where to go with this. So I'm just going to ask and run with it.
And follow the energy.
And follow the energy, exactly. And sometimes that thing that pops out of your mouth is like, it may seem totally left field. It may seem random and weird and not what you were supposed to say. And so often, every time I have that feeling of like, uh-oh, I could have really put my foot in it and gone the wrong direction. That's usually when people come up to me and go, oh, thank you. Those things that you were saying, that's exactly, I've never heard anyone put it that way, but it's just what I needed to hear. And I really am excited about what you've just said to me.
Christopher, I could not agree with you more. It's like, and I love this topic because I do see that people, like, I mean, when you have the right voice, people cannot resist you. And then people are trying to find the right voice rather than actually just being them. I mean, you know, when people talk about access consciousness and how do you, you know, quote unquote, explain access consciousness, what's your elevator pitch? And my point of view is, well, who's in the elevator? Because every time I'm asked a question, it's the energy that I'm following. And I'm like you. It's like I'll end up talking about something so random, like on an airplane to an air hostess or something. And I'm talking about something so random. And then they'll be like, oh, you know what? My niece has OCD when I'm talking about, you know, the tools of access helping with, you know, X-Men kids or something like that. And you always end up saying what is appropriate when you are following the energy. When you're trying to get it right, it's like it never ends up to something that could create a greater possibility. It just ends up with more of a point of view that I would say is more like this sort of face value place rather than what is really required, as you stated with the question, like what is really required with this person? What is this person really required to hear? And if you're willing to follow that energy, no matter how strange it is, it's amazing the connections that you can actually create.
Exactly. And you have to trust that you know what you know, and that you can't get it wrong. The worst thing that happens is you're going to maybe sound like a bit of a fool, but you just have to sort of trust that, hey, you know what? I'm just going to run with this, and I get this knowing or this energy that this is what this person requires, and run with it. And sometimes it's pretty straightforward. Like I remember an instance where I was in Sydney with a mutual friend, Liam Phillips, and Liam Phillips is the author of this book called Curing the Incurable. He has this incredible story about how he was like on his deathbed, and the doctor said, look, well, you know, you kind of have to either live or die. And
yeah, I remember he said, you have a choice.
Yeah.
You can live or die. If you choose to live, this is what we're going to do to you, and you may end up dying anyway, or you could just choose to die.
Yeah, and he chose life. But amazing story. So I was doing a seminar at the time called Out of Control with Sex, and he was doing his classes on curing the incurable. And we decided to walk around in Sydney and see who we could go and talk to about our things. And nearby our hotel, we saw there was this support group center for sex workers in Sydney. And he was like, oh, no, we can't go in there. And I went, oh, sure, why not? Let's go in. And I walked in and I saw the receptionist and I said, hi, we are two people that run seminars to empower people to make conscious decisions around sexuality and their bodies. That's all I said.
And what happened next? This is like a cliffhanger.
Yeah, the woman was like staring at me just going, wow, really? You do that? We're looking for people like that all the time. Do you have any information? So, you know, we left them flyers and business cards and ways to get in touch with us and all this stuff. But just looking at the world that they live in and the lens that they look at the world through and going, okay, so what does this person require? What's their cultural background? You know, where are they from? What are they all about? And looking from those requirements, because it's not always that straightforward. Like you can get yourself in trouble too going, oh, well, this person's a middle-aged woman. They probably want to hear about the glass ceiling and about, you know, I know a lot of women in business who would resent being approached with that kind of information or that kind of elevator pitch. So it's not always that black and white straightforward, but sometimes it is.
I so want a follow-up story with that, Christopher, of you going back to that, back to the place and seeing if they, are interested in doing some of the seminars, etc. So, well, next time you go to Sydney, yeah, we'll have to get a follow-up story on that. I love it. So let's look at you mentioned sales, okay? So a lot of people, I mean, sales is one of those dirty words that most people hate saying that they're in, they're in sales. You happen to love sales. You are kind enough to quite often deliver, a seminar to the Joy Business facilitators around the world on sales and marketing. I'm going to put that word in there because most people put it in there to make sales feel better. Can you tell me a little bit more about how, like, what's some practical, pragmatic tools that people can go out there and start to use with being them in sales, like having the right voice that people can't resist and they actually desire to buy from you? Because, okay, hang on, let me back up a second. I know the difference when I walk into a shop and I'm being pushed at and all I want to do is walk back out. And then the difference of walking into a shop where someone is so willing to help me. And then there's a third one where you walk into a shop and you're like, hello. And all you hear is crickets. And it's obvious that the person couldn't care less if you bought something or not, sort of thing. So what's some pragmatic tools that people could use if they're afraid to talk to people, etc.?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the biggest, like the ones you've just outlined are perfect scenarios for this sort of thing, because having sort of a sense of the energies that are present, in dealing with people is important, because what you've just described is sort of you as a consumer going in. But if you're the person doing the selling, it works the same way. As a salesperson, I'm confronted with people all the time who either have massive barriers up and are afraid I'm going to push them into something, or trying to coerce them into buying something they don't really want. And so there's this wall of resistance pressed up against you. And then, there's some people where that's not there. And then there's other people that are just kind of neutral. Each different person, again, has a different thing that they require to help them achieve what they're after. Now, the last one that you described, though, before I go back and kind of give a tool, is that person who's sort of on neutral and doesn't really care. There is a way you can be with that in sales that I have found to be the most effective tool in selling anything. And that is having no point of view about whether somebody buys something or not. Like, people come into my store all the time and they say, hey, I'm looking for, today it was someone was looking for silver lockets. And I said, gosh, I actually don't have any silver lockets, but I know the lady who does, and her store is just down here. And if you want, I can call them or give you their number and address, and you can go find her shop and buy from her. And they were so like, wow, really? You would do that for me and help me even though I'm not buying from you? And I went, yep. And in doing that, in showing her that I actually really didn't care if she bought it from me or from somebody else, but that she got what she wanted, she immediately dropped all her barriers and trusted what I had to say about everything else.
And then what did you sell her?
Well, she did actually buy some plates and some spoons, which was great.
Right. But I get the energy of that, because then you sort of destroy the points of view that she'd be functioning from, that you're just a salesperson and just want to make money. It's like all of a sudden you actually show the energy, which then goes back to that manipulation of, caring about something that she desires. So,
yeah,
she's going to talk about you too. She's going to tell people this lovely man in this shop in Edward Street,
Yeah, he helped me get what I want. And he's obvious, he's a professional in the industry. He must know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And it's that thing of like the right voice. People are looking for the right way to sell to you. And when you go into, and especially car dealers and real estate agents, they have this sales technique down to a science. Like, I remember the first time I bought a brand new car, the guy kept saying to me, so if I could deliver that vehicle with those specifications at that price, you'd be buying that car today? Would you say you'd be buying that car today if I did that? And he had this whole rehearsed lingo of, that, it's a big German car company. They've invested millions in getting down the right sales pitch and trained these people within an inch of their life to to repeat these lines, and they've probably worked it out that if you can get them to commit to me saying that I'd be buying that car today 3 times, the chances are 80% that I would actually buy that car today. You can feel that they've got it all, worked out.
They've got their statistics worked out.
They've got it right.
Yeah.
And that's, again, sort of the most destructive thing. But to go back to what you said about, those different scenarios, there's these things that you can learn about with access consciousness that if people on this call haven't explored yet, I highly recommend it. Totally changed my life. But there's these things called energy pulls where you can sort of sense whether a person is sort of sitting on neutral or they've got walls up, and you can manipulate the energy to break down those barriers and create that sense of equilibrium and connection between people. Like if they do have walls up and they're just sort of asking you to get out of their space, you can pull energy from them and send a little trickle back to keep them thinking about you until those walls start to dissolve. And that for sales can be amazing. That's even incredible to do if you're in your store and you're having a quiet day and people aren't coming in. I look around my shop and I go, okay, stuff, I want you to pull energy from all the people that are looking for you that don't know it yet. Pull energy from all those people and send a little trickle out to them, a little trickle of breadcrumbs so they know how to find you. Can you guys do that for me? And I actually ask the products to help. So, it's not just about your voice, it's the voice of the product. What does your product want to say? What does your business want to say to the people that are looking for it?
So, Chris, when we say like having the right voice, but we're also talking about not getting it, quote unquote, right as far as this reality is concerned. So am I correct in saying that the right voice is really about finding you and you being you with all of that?
Yeah, my personal interpretation of that, the classes that I do are called Right Voice for You. And there is no right voice. The pursuit of being right is, again, the pursuit of misery. There is no such thing as perfection. And everything you think you've got right is the thing that is imprisoning you and locking you up the most. But having the right voice for you is just about finding you, finding your voice, finding about how you have the most fun, joy, and ease communicating and connecting with people. It's not about doing it the right way. Doing it the right way is like the car company with the rehearsed sort of lines and manipulations to get you to do things their way, to lead that path.
Yeah, rather than them tapping into your energy and seeing where you're at and just going, hey, what's the possibility here? Or, asking another question to see, are you an interested buyer or are you just a looker or et cetera? But having those lines that they do on a regular basis, you can smell the fake, you smell it a mile away. And that is definitely not something that I know I find appealing.
But how appealing is it when you're with somebody who's just being them?
Oh, I know. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I recommend having a look at the people that you do find appealing or that you like to be near, that you want to talk to, that you want to be around. And most of the time they're being them. And that's what's one of the most attractive things in the world is you being you, no matter what it takes and no matter what it looks like. It's not like trying to be like somebody else. It's you being you. So what if you could be that? It's like, just ponder that for a moment. And it's like, what would you create? What would you create in your business? What would you create in your life? So, Christopher, you and I actually have a Zoom together in November, I think. Oh, no, January next year. So it's a long way away, but you can still check it out. It's called Your Voice in Business, and I'm sure I'll talk about it again. But you can find it on my website on SimoneMilasas.com, MILASAS.com, and also on accessjoyofbusiness.com. You can sign up for it now if you desire. So it's with Mr. Christopher and myself, and it's 3 Zooms, and that will be in January. Now, you've also got some classes coming up at the end of the year in Australia. And what else have you got, and where can people find you?
Well, the 2 principal ones that I do have coming up are Right Voice for You classes. One is a 3-day masterclass that will be in Noosa, Australia. It's in December, I believe the second week of December, the 12th, 13th, 14th. Well, I may have those dates slightly wrong. In any case, it's in December. It's on accessconsciousness.com. You can find out more and sign up. And I'm actually facilitating that class with two other amazing facilitators, Lale Hancock and Sylvia Puentes. And directly after that class, there is a facilitator training course for Right Voice for You that you can do. Though there are quite a few prerequisites for that, you actually have to be a facilitator of Access Consciousness to take part in that class. But that is a whole other kettle of fish and an amazing set of classes that you and I both have been a part of for quite a while here. And I couldn't recommend them more highly as something if you really want to change any area of your life and become more of you.
Okay. Random question. Where did kettle of fish come from?
Oh, good question. I'm not sure. Do you know?
No, I don't. But I love those sayings that we all just say all the time.
Yeah.
And then someone told me, this is okay, this is totally off topic, but hey, you know what? I'm allowed to do that. It's my podcast.
Yeah.
Throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's like, you know the story of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to tell the listeners what the story of that is?
Yeah, well, you say don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because once upon a time when you had, a family that needed to have a bath, you couldn't necessarily afford multiple tubs of water or heated water or soap. So your family sort of fell into a hierarchy of who had the bath first, starting with dad and then mom and then the kids and then the baby was last. And sometimes by that point, the water was so murky and dirty, you couldn't actually see what was going on or what was in the bathwater. So, the saying was, don't throw out the bathwater until you've made sure the baby isn't in there as well.
I know. I love that saying though, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And when I heard that story, it made sense. So, hey, I just looked this up and it says nobody is really sure where the expression comes from, but we do know that the phrase a kettle of fish was originally a literal term. These days, especially in Britain and Commonwealth countries, that's us, we think of a kettle as a small enclosed container with a handle and spout for boiling water to make our tea. Still doesn't make any sense.
I know. Why would you put fish in that?
I do not know. But you know
what? I never
what?
put fish in my kettle. But I did hear the other day, though, that there's a statistic of people who visit hotel rooms, use their kettles, and they put their underwear in the kettle and boil it and hang them out to clean them.
Really?
So that they've got fresh undies the next day. And I was traumatized when I read that. I was like,
how many times have you used a kettle?
Having my cup. I know. And then I like having my cup of tea. And now I'm like, oh.
That's hysterical. I wonder how many people actually do that. So anyway, hey, Christopher, I really want to thank you for coming on here. I know I'm going to have you on again because you have so many fun things to talk about. I mean, you don't just do Right Voice for You. You're a facilitator of Access Consciousness. You have done classes in the elegance of living, which is one of my favorite topics. So I'd love to have you on with that. You also run the Antique Guild Shop in Brisbane, Australia, which you have two shops, some of the most beautiful antiques I've ever seen, which you can also have a look at that on theantiqueguild.com.au. And what I would like to do with all the listeners too is ask you, if you're liking these podcasts, can you do us a favor and can you rate them and review them in iTunes so that we can get the word out there for the art and industry of business and living, and see if we can, get the spread word out there about how people can create their lives with ease, joy, and glory. So, Christopher, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I'm in Peregian Beach and you're in Brisbane, Australia, and we'll get this recording out there. And I'm so grateful for you in my life. Truly, you are just such a gift. So, and thank you for being in the world. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor and a lot of fun.